Thanks for being with us today, and welcome to the 22nd edition of the Padova Jazz Festival and to the radio broadcast Il Jazzofono.
Oh, my pleasure. Happy to be here in this room again after 14 years.
Wow. As observed by the New York Times, there's probably no frame wide enough to encompass your creative output. You have released more than 20 albums covering remarkably diverse terrain. Which is the one where your music feels at home, if there's one?
Oh, that would be like, how many children do you have?
One only.
Only one, okay.
Unfortunately.
Grandchildren? No.
No, not yet.
It would sort of be like asking who's your favorite child if you had 6 kids in the earth. Each one of them is different and has its own life. And I feel strongly about each one of them. I stand behind each one. I still, to this day, even my first album from when I was half a lifetime ago, from 1995, I still believe in that music too. I'm not sure I can really, what I would say is that if you look at any 3 in a row,
Okay.
because they keep changing, but any 3 in a row will tell you something about me as a kind of collection of interests and associations, affiliations, aesthetics, and musical priorities. So if you look at, for example, the last 3 that I put out, one was a duo with Craig Taborn this year called the Transitory Poems, 2 pianos completely created in real time. It's a live concert. The one before that was the sextet album Far From Over, which is a band that has been working together for many years, and some of the musicians in that band I've worked with for 20 years. Prior to that was the duo album with Wadada Leo Smith, where I play piano and electronics and synthesizer and Fender Rhodes and laptop and different things. And that's a tribute to a visual artist named Nasreen Mohammadi. And that has, each one of them sounds completely different, but all 3 of them together tell you something about me, which is what my musical priorities are and who my people are, who my community is, and the way that things keep changing. I think that too.
That's interesting. Trio. Let me ask you about the trio. Your trio with Stephen Crump and Marcus Gilmore is critically acclaimed and actually feels like you are in perfect harmony when you play together. And your 2015 ECM album, Break Stuff, is my favorite. It has something special, and I was going to ask you if you will record more music with this trio.
Well, probably. I like to, we made 3 albums with that band and toured a lot, played all over the world, thousands of concerts,
Wow.
And so there are some live recordings that, even one that Manfred made when we were performing once in San Francisco. So there's a lot of possibility there. I'm trying to write new music for the trio, but I also like to play with different people and explore different possibilities as well. So time will tell, I'll put it that way.
Okay. About time, you have studied 15 years violin. Beginning when you were actually a little child. How did it happen that you switched to piano?
I didn't switch. I played them both at the same time, but I only had lessons on violin, and on piano I found my own way. But starting around the same time, when I was little boy, you know, like this, you know. And so those two things together helped make me the musician I am. On the one side, a certain very regulated and strict kind of training on an instrument, trained my ear, helped me kind of connect different, an understanding of music, and hear that tradition, the Western classical tradition, be a part of it for many years. I played in orchestras, I played chamber music, I played the solo Bach and solo concertos and different things. I wasn't great, but it gave me a sense of like how that music can work, particularly dealing with notation. On the other side, the piano was a space of pure creativity for me, and pure exploration, experimentation, listening, and self-directed study. And that's also a big part of the tradition when you really look at it. Duke Ellington, Muhal Richard Abrams, many pianists, Errol Garner, many pianists taught themselves or were taught by the world, So that's a big part of how artists become artists is to have both of those things, to have some kind of clarity and specificity, and then also to have some freedom to explore and basically no one told me any rules, so I couldn't break any, I mean, I did study music theory when I was about 12, 13. I started taking some classes like that, so I learned about and harmony and analysis and that stuff. And then when I was about 14, I started in earnest trying to play this great tradition of African American creative music. I started studying the music of Thelonious Monk and Miles Davis and John Coltrane and Billie Holiday and Nina Simone and Alice Coltrane and McCoy Tyner, Herbie Hancock and Sun Ra and everybody. So I became kind of obsessed and immersed, and then that just one thing led to another. Still doing it.
Thank you. And I've heard you saying that Thelonious Monk is your greatest inspiration. Mm-hmm. And I like the way you've played Epistrophe in your solo album dated 2010.
Wow.
Do you think that you will record more Monk's tune in the future?
Oh yeah. I recorded another composition of his called Work on that same album, Break Stuff, yes. The trio album. And what else of his? I think I used to play Around Midnight solo a lot. I know all of his music, so I think about him all the time. And in a way, also, I feel that his sensibility speaks through me as a composer often. Certain things that I do that are basically trying to sound like him or trying to do what he did, that sort of like real inventive and intense creative language, sounds that no one had heard before on the piano, and rhythms that lift you up, that kind of stuff that, it doesn't have to be one of his compositions to be inspired by him and to be, in a way, an homage or a tribute to him.
Okay. You also said that you grew up listening to Michael Jackson and Prince. Mm-hmm. Is this the reason why you have covered the song like Human Nature, or did you choose it because Miles Davis has also recorded it in 1985.
No, I chose it because it was actually the year he died that I started playing it solo. It was actually the week he died, in fact. The week that Michael Jackson died, I was playing a solo concert, and so I tried to summon and conjure his spirit. And, you know, it's true. I mean, I grew up listening to him, and his music was very important to me. It really is one of the reasons I became a musician, even, is because of all that there was to find and to discover, and to make you feel a certain way that was in his music. A lot of that also was Quincy Jones, to be honest, you know, because he made Off the Wall and Thriller sound the way they do, you know, with that immense depth of detail that then gave you this immense feeling, you know. And that's something that I'm not alone in thinking. I mean, 1 billion people bought that record, right? Something like that. So it's actually quite commonplace for someone in my generation. I was 10 when that came out. Yeah, most of us felt that way. Certainly, most American kids were enchanted, you know. And then the rhythm stays with you, and that was one of his great strengths, as you saw it in the way he danced, the way he carried himself, and the way he enunciated. His relationship to the pulse was very strong and very elaborate and very joyful.
You talked about Quincy Jones as a producer, and as a fan of all the soul and R&B music of that years, I was even more surprised when I recognized in your album Accelerando the song Star of a Story. It's an obscure Rob Temperton song, originally included in the 1980 George Benson Give Me the Night, where Herbie Hancock was on the electric piano.
Well, my introduction to it was through hip-hop, actually. There's a song on Tribe Called Quest's album, The Low End Theory, with Ron Carter playing, and it's called Verses from the Abstract. And they do a kind of, it's not quite a sample, it's not quite a cover, but it's a little bit of both. There's someone singing that melody, but with different lyrics. Her name is Vinia Mojica, is her name. And Ron Carter's playing that bass line. So that was in my ear already. And then years later, actually Marcus turned me on to the original. Marcus Gilmore, the drummer, turned me on to the original. I think. No, actually that's not what it was. You know what it was? It was an interview I saw with the producer of that track, who talked about it. That's what, Ali Shahid Muhammad.
Okay.
Right, because I remember listening to it with Marcus, but it was from that interview. So then I was kind of newly enchanted by that melody, you know. That sound. So I just wanted to play it again. I wanted to play it because, like, you know, that hip hop album by Tribe Called Quest came out when I was 18.
Okay.
And I listened to it constantly in college, like for a year, every day.
Okay.
So it was very alive to me. You know?
Okay.
And then it was interesting when we started playing it, and you know, there was like my generation recognized it from the hip hop, from that track, from Tribe Called Quest's album. But then people who were, say, 15 or 20 years older than me recognized it from their childhood, you know. I mean, maybe not even that much older than me, but people who were born in, say, 1960 or so, they knew it because one man I know who's a music journalist in New York, he said, you know, I used to slow dance to that song when I was in junior high school. So, like, you know, that means like you'd find someone on the dance floor who might want to sway with you, you know. So it had that. It was funny because we gave it this very different rhythmic intensity when we did it, and we still do it actually.
Oh, okay.
That it has a way. I mean, what we found doing it that way with that kind of specific rhythmic profile gives us. It opens up the sound of the trio. It gives us this way to access a different kind of intensity and resonance and power. So.
Next two questions. The last. These are from Anna Laura. She's a member of a 6,000 people Facebook group named All That Jazz. The first one says, how difficult is it for a pianist and composer to affirm his talent, and how difficult it is to capture attention and arouse the listener's emotions?
That's how difficult. How do I? What's the on a scale of 1 to 10? Well, it's kind of about, you know, this is kind of a question about artistic priorities. You know, what is it that I, or anybody, is trying to do playing for a room full of people like this, you know? And one thing I have to do is try to make others feel the way I feel, right? This is more than a display of ability or something. This isn't like gymnastics, right? It's actually, it's, you know, our canvas, our artistic medium is human emotions, right? So this is something I learned by performing, you know, is that it's not about me, actually. It's actually about me making contact with others and becoming a kind of conduit or a vessel for something larger than myself, so that others may meet themselves inside of it, you know. So how difficult is that? It's maybe a matter of just allowing yourself to make that your priority, to make this process of playing for everybody else instead of for me, you know? So that's as difficult as you make it.
Thank you. The second question from the group All That Jazz. Since you're also a music teacher, what are you trying to teach your students beyond the notes, and what did you learn from them?
Well, I'd say I teach two different kinds of things. One is working with musicians to help them make the music they want to make, help them discover what that is. The other is maybe in a more academic vein. I'm studying, reading and writing and critiquing and thinking, you know, like thinking about music, right? Trying to find language for it, and trying to gain some new or contemporary understanding of what's happening, what music does, what it's for, what is it, you know, what can it do next, you know? I mean, what I can say as an artist is that the category of music has no boundary. It's endless. There's always something new for us to hear and discover and relate to,
Yeah.
So that's part of what I think my students and I teach each other is the boundlessness of the category of music, which is also the boundlessness of the human being.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to talk to you. I very much appreciate the time you dedicate to this interview.
Sure.
Thank you very much again. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
My pleasure.